I met Lorenzo Garcia in the fall of 1978. He had just been appointed by Jerry Apodaca and was the youngest, and still is the youngest, district court ever to be appointed in the history of New Mexico. At that time, he was also the youngest general jurisdiction judge in the country.
I came to know Judge Garcia because the majority of my practice is civil rights litigation and is in federal court. So because the magistrate judges handle discovery, I met Judge Garcia early on in my career. Judge Garcia is the best dressed man in the room, and he is also the most prepared person in the room. And that became apparent to me immediately.
I met Judge Garcia when I was a public defender, and he was on the trial bench with the First Judicial District. And I was trying cases as a very new lawyer.
My initial interactions with Judge Garcia really impacted my career and impressed me greatly. And the reason why is because in federal court, discovery is tightly managed and scheduling is managed. The lawyers have to get together and decide on deadlines and discovery, and then we meet with the judge to formalize that. Usually I'm very, very well prepared for any meeting I have with the judge. But in this case, when I got to that meeting, Judge Garcia was much more knowledgeable about my case than I was. And that embarrassed me a bit, but it also impressed me. And it made me decide that I was never going to let a judge know more about my case than I did. And from then on, I tried to be the most prepared person in the room. Of course, I never was. He was always better prepared than me. But that did inspire me.
At the first hearing, Paul Bardicke was representing a state university, and I was representing the plaintiff. And Paul and I had done battle many times before and many times since. And although it was unspoken, I think it was clear that both of us thought, here is a young, inexperienced judge. He's been a lawyer for less than 5 years. It is my solemn duty to my client to go in and see if I can calmly and carefully assume control of the courtroom for the benefit of my client. Paul and I were both seriously misestimated the judge. From the beginning tap of the gavel of the very first jury trial Lorenzo Garcia tried as a judge, it was clear who was in control. It happened to be the one in the black robe with the gavel in his hand.
He was very formal, very intimidating, always very well prepared, always had read all of my submissions, which was very reassuring as a new lawyer. I felt that he knew exactly what I needed to do. He knew my client. He knew my client's position. He knew all about my client. So that was, for a new lawyer, that was very, very reassuring and very comforting. So I felt that half my work was done, and he, of course, knew the government's case very well. So I always felt very comforted going into his room. And now as a judge, looking back, I realize more what an incredible feat that was, because their caseload is so high, so much higher than ours, and without any law clerks. And one thing that I didn't know then, because as a young lawyer, you're so preoccupied with your own cases in your own life, he had young children then. So it's really, really amazing.
The first thing one understands about Lorenzo Garcia is his dedication. He is dedicated to his craft with a great deal of effort. He takes work home. He comes to work early. He leaves work late. Saturdays or Sundays make no difference. Holidays make no difference. He is there because of his dedication.
Further interactions with Judge Garcia demonstrated his commitment to excellence in everything that he does. And that inspired me further. And I never wanted to give anything to him that was less than perfect. And of course, that spills over into your entire career.
I first really got to know Judge Garcia more personally when we both tried a death penalty case together. It was in Tierra Maria, so we were stuck there for months. The defendant was an older gentleman, about the age of my grandfather, so I got pretty emotionally attached. I was pregnant and I was very sick. Very sick. It was my first pregnancy, and I had to ask Judge Garcia if I could please be allowed to run to the bathroom when I needed to, and I was scared to ask him. I also needed to have 7-Up and saltines at the table. You know, you don't do that in the courtroom, of course, especially with Judge Garcia. He was very accommodating. I was so wrapped up with how I was feeling and the type of case we were handling and how it was my first one, and this poor guy got stuck with me, you know, as his lawyer. Thank God Paul Kennedy was also the first chair, that it didn't even occur to me that this young dad was there away from his wife and his 2 little boys, that I wasn't the only one being inconvenienced, but Judge Garcia is also having to be so far away from his family for months as well. You know, it taught me from the very beginning that, and something that was confirmed the many years that I have been now his friend, is that his personal circumstances have never gotten in the way of his always being very professional and very well prepared. I had a lot to learn, but as a young judge, he was always there, always present, never distracted.
I remember once years ago talking to a judge at a cocktail party, a mandatory cocktail party, and he was on the Court of Appeals, and I said, "What's the best thing about being a judge?" And his answer was twofold. One, when you walk in a room, everyone stands up and everyone laughs at your jokes. That is not Lorenzo Garcia. Lorenzo Garcia is a judge because it is his passion. He loves the complexity of the law. He loves learning new areas of law and the chess involved in learning those disciplines. He loves the melding of facts and law. He loves the weighing of equity and fairness. He loves the formality. He loves treating each and every person who walks in his courtroom with dignity and respect and care and honor. These are important to him. He doesn't care that anyone laughs at his jokes. He doesn't tell many jokes.
Many years ago, I had a case, a civil rights case with a pro se plaintiff. And the woman was a little off kilter. And she was convinced that the judge was in cahoots with the defendants in the case. And she filed a motion to have the judge recuse himself. And of course, federal court judges don't recuse themselves. But Judge Garcia took her motion seriously. And he felt that she would always feel that she wasn't part of the process and wasn't being treated fairly. So although he denied the motion to excuse, he voluntarily recused himself so that she would feel more a part of the process and wouldn't feel like she's being treated unfairly. And so Judge Garcia doesn't wield his power as a federal magistrate judge as a bully. He tries to exercise justice and discretion.
And there's another saying in northern New Mexico, which is querencio de trabajar, which means love of work. It is what your heart sings for. It is what your soul craves. It is what you were meant to do. And if anyone watched any of the Olympics in August as I did, you will know that the querencia de trabajar of Usain Bolt is to run. The querencia de trabajar of Phelps and Katie Ledecky is to swim. And of Simone Biles is to leap and soar. Lorenzo had this passion for being a judge.
I'm honored and moved to be able to speak for Judge Garcia. He has done so much for me in my professional life. He has helped me raise my game, and I believe he has done so for a generation of lawyers who practice in federal court. I believe this award has been a long time coming for Judge Garcia. He has deserved it for a long time, and I'm thrilled that he's finally being recognized by the Alumni Association.
I have been honored every time he has asked me. When he was sworn in as the Court of Appeals judge, he asked me to speak in his behalf, which I did in the old courthouse in Santa Fe. And I would be honored to speak in his behalf on any occasion.
I'm very excited that Judge Garcia is receiving this award because he loves what he does. He, in his spare time, reads law. As I mentioned earlier, he reads all of our opinions. He makes us all better judges, better lawyers. The example he's given us, both as a practicing lawyer and as a jurist, is one of always showing up for whatever it is that he's doing, better prepared than those that appear before him. Throughout the years, he has been extremely, extremely considerate and thoughtful. And I've always missed that. He's someone I can always go to. You know, when you become a judge, you lose your partners. You know, you lose the people with whom you strategize and talk a case through. I've never lost him.
I first met Joe when he arrived at the law school in 1971. I was a second-year law student and he was a brand new professor. He was probably a year older than I, and we became friends listening to old jazz records and borrowing cigarettes from each other.
I met Joe because I had the amazing change in my life of the law school. Fred Hart calling me in 1971, telling me the 20 women law students were demanding a woman law professor. There were almost no women lawyers in New Mexico. When I passed the bar, there were 10 women lawyers practicing. So that's how I became a law professor, and Joe was next door to me. And of course, Joe, you meet him once and he's your best friend, and he is one of the 2 or 3 best friends I have in the world.
I grew up in North Dakota, and my undergraduate years were spent at the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks. And Joe's first teaching position was at the University of North Dakota School of Law. When we were dating, I was working in Washington, D.C. for a congressman from North Dakota one summer, and he was working for Vermont Legal Aid. And I used to get as cheap a fare as possible and usually fly every weekend from DC to Burlington, Vermont. And he would pick me up at the airport and we'd go right to the legal aid offices, and I'd be, helping Xerox things or prepare for some argument or other. And those were exciting times because those were sort of law reform days.
I was teaching at Boston College. It was actually my last year there before I came out here. Joe was a first-year student. Joe remembers that I met him the first day of orientation. I don't remember that. In the spring, I had him in class. I'll tell you one incident in the class. I had called on Joe, and Joe was reciting, and as you probably can guess, Joe's recitation sort of went on and on. I stopped him and I said to the class, I said, I want all of you other students to listen very carefully to what Joe is saying. And I said, go ahead, Mr. Goldberg, continue, and he went on for again a while. And he finally stopped and I said, are you finished? And he said, yes. And I said, well, let me tell the rest of the class. I hope you're all paying attention because just about everything Joe said was wrong.
As soon as you meet Joe, you realize what a very, very a brilliant guy he is, how very, very smart he is, how very engaged he is in not just the world of law, but the world of social justice and politics and social life, and in all the other ways that one typically gets engaged in life. Joe did it and has always done it sort of to the maximum.
His office, there were just huge stacks of paper everywhere. And I was sort of used to it, but one day I said to him, "Joe, what is all this paper?" He said, "Oh, I'm litigating Medicaid cases against the state and also AFDC cases." And that's, I mean, who did that as a law professor? That is when I first learned of Joe's unbelievable focus on and empathy for less fortunate people. I mean, these are poor people in New Mexico, and who is worrying about them on the law school faculty? Joe.
The other thing that I think was appealing to me from the time I first met him when I was 19, and it was sort of the height of the Vietnam War, is that he always makes time, and it is really important to him, to sort of give voice to people and causes that might not be able to speak so effectively for themselves. So when I first knew him, he was representing a lot of conscientious objectors whose deferments were being denied and who were facing prison. And so he was arguing a lot and getting injunctions and going to circuit court while he was teaching law as really a person who was younger than most of his students.
I didn't see Joe, I don't think, after I left Boston College. I don't recall seeing him. But he made a real impression on me. And when I became dean, I had been teaching for 8 years at 3 different law schools. I've been very involved in legal education. I knew an awful lot of young teachers around the country. There was one person I wanted to get here to New Mexico. That was Joe Goldberg. Joe, on his way here, got picked up for speeding and put in jail, actually, in Oklahoma. And he probably wouldn't have, he'd probably still be in jail because he didn't have any money. And they wouldn't let him see a judge for 3 or 4 days, and he was in jail. But one of the assistant district attorneys came by and was talking to some other person, and Joe started talking to him. And it turned out he was a UNM graduate. So he let Joe go, and Joe got here.
And also Joe was, I think, recognized as a terrific teacher. He came to class very prepared. He was very engaged with the students in class, and I think he was one of those teachers who may have been somewhat demanding at times, but who certainly communicated the knowledge that needed to be communicated.
To me, the most impressive thing is what I said, his empathy for poor people. I mean, let's face it, in this country, people don't walk around thinking, I've got to help poor people, and I got to do it today, and I got to sue the state because they're screwing them on Medicaid. I mean, who thinks that? Joe. Joe did that for 15 years. He did it to the point that when Tony Anaya became governor in 1983, he was governor 83 to 87, he called Joe. And you know what he said? He said, "You've been suing me for years. When I was in the AG's office, I know what you do. Why don't you come be head of the Department of Health and Human Services and make it right?" And Joe did. He commuted to Santa Fe every day for 2 days to be Tony Anaya's first head of that department to correct things for poor people. Now, is this sort of off scale for a law professor? Absolutely is. That's Joe.
Recently, as many people know, he had a trial in Kansas City, Kansas, involving chemicals in the world of polyether polyols, in which he ended up obtaining a judgment in excess of $1 billion on behalf of a national class, and tried the case as lead counsel. And that was an extraordinary success, which has worked its way through the courts and is now finally settled. And he has many accomplishments like that in that world, although trials in that world are so few and far between that accomplishment really stands out. I think it's the largest antitrust judgment ever obtained.
I really have a number of favorite things about Joe. I mean, one of them is his energy. I mean, he has sort of boundless energy, and he's always undertaking a huge number of things at once, and he does them all with efficiency that just I'm in awe of, because I am the opposite. Everything takes me forever, I put things off, but he just sort of plunges in and attacks and finishes. So I'm attracted to, his energy and to his passion and his concern for others and his passion for giving voice to people who may not be able to effectively advocate for themselves.
I think Joe has had an enormous impact on the law and the legal community in New Mexico. And this really started before he even got here. Many people don't know that Joe was a clerk for Phil Hirschkopf back in Virginia when Loving versus Virginia was brought and vindicated the right of black and white couples to marry and to declare unconstitutional Virginia's miscegenation laws. He was a law clerk for that, wrote the briefs, helped write the briefs in the Supreme Court, was dragooned by Fred Hart to come out here and teach at the law school. And as soon as he got here, he was completely engaged in legal issues that he felt were important for the state and for people in the state, from welfare reform to violations of the law by various governors along the way, to redistricting cases. And he's always been there, he's always been engaged, he's always been a guy who recognized that the law was a tool that he could use to accomplish great things, which he has done.
Joe is also a friend. In fact, my wife and I are the godparents to his 2 children. He lives a few blocks away, and although Joe is away a lot, we see him whenever we can, and he is a true friend of the family, and has been, and somebody we really want to keep as a friend.
In part because our lives are so full of demands in terms of our external responsibilities to clients and to colleagues and that kind of thing. We don't have as much time as we would really like for the friends that we have that are outside of our immediate family. And we're together a lot in terms of our home life and dealing with our kids even now. He had a ritual with the kids, and they all loved it. Every Saturday, he would take them marketing, which I don't know why they loved it so much, but they did. And then they would have lunch at Cheese and Coffee with Phyllis and Bernie every Saturday. And he would just incorporate them into whatever it was he was doing, and they really, really enjoyed it. I remember a photograph of Joe being the speaker at a law school graduation, and Nick at his feet in red high-top sneakers and like blue Hawaiian shorts, thinking, how did he get out of the house like that? But so he just sort of included them in whatever it was that was going on. And I think they also have that sort of sense of possibility that they acquired from him, of just going after things and not really being intimidated by barriers, but they just sort of figure out a way to either get around them or plow through them. It depends on which kid you're talking about, I think.
Joe has so many achievements that I wouldn't begin to catalog them. In our world of the law here in New Mexico, from his time as a professor, to his time as university counsel, to his time in private practice with us and before us with Bill Carpenter for a few years, he has defined distinguished achievement.
It is a real honor to be asked to talk about Joe because I've known him for so many years now. He is the most unusual person I know. I really think that's true. In the breadth of his interests, his dedication and personal involvement in his interests, his commitment to fairness in the society. That's fundamentally it, and his putting himself on the line. So anyway, it's a great honor to be asked to speak about him because I respect him so much and I love him so dearly.
I think this recognition, it's been a long time coming because Joe's been a member of the legal community here for a really long time, was a faculty member for a long time, and I'm just thrilled.
One of the best things I did when I was becoming dean was to get Joe to come to the law school. Not only for the law school, but for the state of New Mexico, because he has had an impact on the school and on the state. And if he had stayed in North Dakota, we would have missed somebody who really made life a lot better for a lot of people in this state.
I first met Tim when I came to New Mexico for the very first time, looking to make a change in my career. And Tim was one of the construction lawyers who took time out of his schedule to talk to me. And Tim was actually the one of all the folks I talked to who said, yes, you should come back, you should take the bar exam, we'll find something for you to do here. And so that's how I got my start with Sheehan & Sheehan.
I first met Tim Sheehan somewhere around 1980 when a prior student took Tim in to meet me when I was dean. And the rest is history, as they say. We have been friends ever since.
I met Tim when he brought his son to my kindergarten class at Manzano Day School. What drew me to Tim immediately was how he invested himself in his son's growth and blossoming in the classroom. Then we started dating. I brought him 5 daughters. He brought me his precious son. And there was one night when he invited me to a Frank Bond event at his house. It was a cold, snowy January evening. Things were running late at my house. It was difficult to get a car from the girls. I get there, it's late. I dash up the steps. I can hear Frank Bond speaking. And the next thing I know, as I go to stabilize myself on the front door, the door flies open and I make this grand entrance, not slipping in like I had first intended. Everything came to a halt. Tim gave me a hug and things went on, but I was sure I had ruined our relationship.
I guess the first thing that I noticed about Tim when I talked to him was his overwhelmingly positive attitude. It was that sense that, yes, we can do this. I talked to several other lawyers, and this was 1992, economic conditions weren't great. Tim, on the other hand, just said, oh, come on, we'll find something for you to do. And that really has been the hallmark of Tim for as long as I've known him, is his positivism towards everything.
Tim is recognized as one of the leading experts in the state on construction law. In fact, he not only serves clients in this state, he is a member of the American Arbitration Association and arbitrates construction law type cases throughout the country.
I know that Tim is considered to be one of the very best construction lawyers there is in New Mexico. Although he would not step up and take that accolade lightly, he's very proud of his work and he has enjoyed moving from construction law in the courtroom to doing arbitrations, which are huge in many cases and involve so many other people. And whenever I talk to him about how he's going to come down with a verdict or something, he'll say, you know, it's not just one person's doing. Many times the blame is spread across many, and so I have to take that into account. Tim is a very cautious man when it comes to people and their feelings and making sure that things are right.
He ran the law firm as the president for so many years, and only when he started to slow down his practice did I become involved with those functions. And I never really appreciated how much he'd done for the firm on that side, and what a really outstanding businessman Tim was, in addition to all his other good qualities. That's something that's hard to appreciate from the outside, but when you're trying to do it yourself like I am now, you can see what real talent he had for making that law firm a success.
I would observe Tim at the office on occasion, and people would come up to me and tell me what a wonderful person I was married to, that when everybody else lost their calm, he would still retain his and be able to pull everybody back together. He would make sure that each day was a good day for his employees. He would gather them together when he felt that they needed more strength and more direction. And you can just tell when you walk into the environment, you can just feel it. You feel that people are happy, people want to be there.
Tim is the kind of person who is quiet. But because of his abilities, his personality, his depth of service, there is no question that he is a leader in all that he has done. Members of the organizations on which he has served have looked to him for his comments, for his ideas, for his help. It's not that Tim goes out of his way to indicate his abilities, just his presence there is enough for people to know that he is the person to go to.
One of the things Tim taught me was that it was okay to settle cases, that often that is what's in the best interest of the client and even the best interest of the construction industry to resolve things early on. And that was a valuable lesson for a young lawyer, that not everything had to be fought through to the bitter end, that if you could just discover the facts and talk to the other side as reasonable people, that you could often resolve things in ways that helped all the people involved.
Tim has such a big heart that I am just so drawn to that. He was marvelous with the girls. He brought them so much knowledge, calm, support. In fact, one of them became a lawyer. I could see Tim's influence on Kelly because she was floundering around trying to find her way through medicine, and it wasn't quite the right fit. And so he kept encouraging her with different venues, not necessarily pushing her, but just leaving little avenues open for her to make her own choices. And very shortly, she became very invested in law. She became a lawyer she barred in New Mexico, she barred in Colorado, and she started this organization called Women in Energy with 7 people that blossomed into 250, and they were able to make contacts, women to women, getting their careers launched and meeting people that they wouldn't have a venue to meet in another way. And I know that that is Tim's support of her. He encouraged her every step of the way.
One term that describes Tim is humility. No one doubts and all recognize Tim as an outstanding lawyer. Few people know the depth and the extent of his service that he's given. He served on the bar of the Center of Law and Poverty for many years, helping that organization grow to where it is now. He served on the board and helped fundraising for Equal Access to Justice, which provides funds for legal aid and poverty law type organizations. Tim did this without any recognition whatsoever, nor did he ever want any recognition. He was always giving the other person the recognition. But there is no question of how much he has contributed to the profession in that sense.
I know for many years he taught a class in construction law at the School of Engineering. Oh, I think Tim really enjoyed the interaction with his students. Tim's very much a people person. He just loves interaction with people all around him, and the fact that he just presents so genuinely interest in the people really drew people out. And so I think he got to bond with a fair number of his engineering students and other students, and he really enjoyed doing that.
Tim is such a family man. He enjoys being a part of each of the children's life and participates fully, whether it's the good times or the rough waves. Tim is there. In fact, his intuition with the girls was just amazing. He would show up and change events and change his clients just to be at home if the pot was boiling, so to say. He's just an amazing man on all levels. He's got the dearest heart.
Tim is not a graduate of this law school. Tim, I'm sorry to say, is a graduate of the University of Michigan Law School. But for all of us, it's as if he is an alumnus of this law school. Tim has given so much to the bar, to the profession, and to this law school. He has taught here. He has served as a member of the Friends of the Law School. He has helped participating in fundraising, and I believe there's a scholarship in which he's been involved and named after him. It's hard to think of Tim as not being part of this law school.
I think Tim was a real role model for my practice in that he told me just to be who I was, and that freed me up to be comfortable with myself. Also, his depth of knowledge about New Mexico construction law really helped me adapt to practicing here. And then after he introduced me to clients, would set me free to handle the cases the way I thought was appropriate. I would always go talk to him about them, but he let me do it my way. And I've always appreciated the opportunity he gave me to become a better lawyer.
Tim deserves to be honored because of his distinguished achievement, both as a member of the bar, the founder with his father of now one of the leading law firms in the state, his contributions to the bar, to the community, his willingness to help everyone who needs help. To me, that's the sign of a person who should be the recipient of this award.
I think it's wonderful that Tim is getting this recognition and this award because he's been a great mentor, he's been a leader in the field of construction law, and he has made contributions to the legal profession and our community that really, I think, have been unheralded.
The only thing I can add about Tim is that it is totally a joy and an honor to be his wife. I enjoy every minute that we have together. Our years together, which are many now, have gone by so quickly, in such a blink that I'm of course greedy. I would like more and more and more and more. But he is just a wonderful man, and it's an honor and a privilege to be his wife.
My name is Taylor Luetis, class of 2012.
My name is Dominic Martinez.
Hi, my name is Noelle Sauer, and I am the first recipient of the Law Alumni Association's
Full Tuition Merit Scholarship.
The scholarships that the Alumni Association supports are life-changing in so many ways.
I knew that I wanted to come to law school. I knew that I wanted to be back in New Mexico, but I thought that I might have to take a couple of years off to work and save up money before I could come back here.
I know that it motivated me to work harder in law school, to do things that I might not otherwise have done. For me in particular, it's life-changing to know there are people who believe in you enough to support your goals and dreams.
The scholarship changed my life and really allowed me to focus on my education while I'm here in law school.
It solidified my decision to stay in New Mexico, to attend law school here, and to become a New Mexico lawyer.
The scholarship was life-changing for me. It allowed me to come back home.
Your support of events like these, like the Distinguished Achievement Awards Dinner and the golf tournament, make these scholarships possible. You're helping to support one of 3 full tuition merit-based scholarships.
And we can't thank you enough for your contributions and your generosity.
Thank you again for your generosity and support.
Your support really matters, and we couldn't do this without you.
Thank you everyone for coming to events like these and continuing to support our law students in our UNM School of Law.